All right, guys, third installment of another kind of fitness with Luke here, and pretty much just finished up wrapping up the NRL Hunter match in Belt, Montana. And I was telling Luke, I know I'm sore after keeping a pretty decently active lifestyle, and I know some of the competitors, the 160 that were there, are definitely, some of them are going to be pretty sore. We were hiking around with anywhere between 40 to 60 pounds on our back. That's our gear, ammunition, our rifle. And I would say round trip, everyone did at least 3 miles a day, Saturday, Sunday. I know I did at least 5 miles on Friday, and then probably 3 miles round trip Saturday and Sunday as a range officer. So just, thinking of ideas for guys, instead of taking, the Monday, Tuesday off, because a lot of these guys are probably going straight back to work or whatever. And they're like, hey, I got my working out for the weekend. And then, maybe feeling sore or whatever the case might be, things they can do to kind of cool down from a match like that, or something that's high intensity like that over a,
Sure.
2-day week. Yeah.
And you guys wrapped it up yesterday, or did you wrap it up Sunday?
Yeah, we wrapped it up Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, Sunday. And then usually right after the match, especially after a long day of shooting, starting at 7 to 3, these guys are in a vehicle for the next 8 hours driving home.
Yep, absolutely. And that was kind of one of the first thoughts I had. So as we continue this video, and I had a thought this morning when I was heading to the gym of just like, this being kind of the third piece of this series that we're doing. As the practitioner in me is constantly thinking after we film is like, well, maybe I should add more specificity there. Should have talked about that. Should have talked about this. So again, I guess, just to give you an idea of the goal here is just to get you guys some exposure and get you thinking about some things that you might be able to apply immediately. And in today's case, improve recovery, but in some of the other ones, just improve our performance generally. So none of this is locked in as the only way, right? I could give you another list of 10 interventions, but we're just trying to get the ball rolling, get things started. So my first thought on the recovery side of a weekend, like you've just explained, is that the first thought I had is we get through all this activity, and then most of us are traveling then.
Yeah.
So we've got this sustained flexion position, which gets us stoved up, gets us feeling tighter even sooner. So that's some of the stuff that we want to work out. And the stuff that we're going to go through today, you might even find the most value that night, right? Or that immediate next morning to help work that out so that we can avoid some of that post competition, soreness, stiffness, anything like that. So the other thing too that I'll just plug real quick before we get into any of the movement stuff is nutrition and hydration. Right. So I tell my clients and my members all the time, the shirt for the Barbell Club says "Make a muscle," right? We don't build muscle in here. We break it down in here. We build it outside of the gym. And so in this context, if your body needs to recover from everything you've put it through, what's happening with nutrition, what's happening with hydration, those are going to be some things that need to be considered and on your radar, especially the hydration piece.
100%.
When we're in competition like that, that's not our priority. We're focused on other things. So most guys are probably in a little bit of a dip on how well they're hydrated and maybe even nutrient wise, because we're getting what we can on the run and stuff like that. So I just think reestablishing those basics will be a wonderful first piece of the puzzle for the recovery and feeling the way you want to feel, especially with the stiffness and things like that. Man, we're like 75% water, so making sure that the hydration is high is going to be key. So outside of that, today for kind of an active recovery, sometimes the hunch is like, well, I just need to rest. Well,
exactly. I'm guilty of that. Yeah.
Like that was a lot, and I just need to rest. Yes, but if there's a way that we can do it a little bit more in active nature, I think that lends to working some of the soreness and stiffness out of that system quicker. So that's kind of what we'll focus on today. We'll do some movement stuff. We'll do some activation stuff. And also just some kind of soft tissue mobilization just to get things moving so that we can head into the week kind of ready to roll again. Where I'm going to start with you today, Phil, just to get some blood moving, man, is I'm going to get you on the Echo bike. And the main reason for that is it's got a push-pull relationship for the upper body, which I like for, we'll try that height and we'll adjust if we need to. But the push-pull nature of the arms is going to get us some of that thoracic rotation that we've already been talking about for that upper back. And then of course we're gonna open up the hips here too. Okay. So as I get Phil on this, I'm not gonna have him kill himself. We're not doing a Tabata, we're not doing anything like that. I just want him to, in fact, I'm gonna have him probably slow down a little bit. The Echo Bike has a way of like making you wanna like get after it, right? It's like, it promotes that workload. So, but just getting him moving on this, getting a little bit of that repetitive motion, letting arms and legs work together for this. Okay. And letting his body move. Like the push-pull relationship, I want him to feel some motion here in his upper back instead of just being stiff and it's just a bicep-tricep pump. I don't want that. I want the whole kind of upper quarter and shoulder complex to move with this. So I want him reaching on the push and pulling a little bit, just to get a little bit of that back and forth. So I'm just gonna have him cruise on here for a couple minutes before we get started with some of the other stuff I want to get into. I like getting blood into the tissues that we're gonna mobilize and that we're gonna get some maybe activation patterns into. So this is a nice way to get it rolling, get the heart rate going, right? It's that pump. From a physical therapy standpoint, when we're talking about removing inflammation, removing symptoms, a lot of the manual therapies that we'll do, like a mobilization with movement, it's about creating a pump. Okay. Creating fluid exchange and getting things moving, getting that blood moving. Blood is our transport system for all things good and all things bad, right? So I like the movement piece. So again, we're not coming in and killing ourselves on any like, high intensity, interval cardio or anything like that. We're just let's just get the body moving a little bit. Okay. So
you'd probably say for these guys, first thing, probably 5 minutes on the bike to start off with?
I think so, 5 to 10 minutes of something that just kind of gets us warming up. We're gonna hit a couple of the things that we've kind of done in some of the other videos. Yep. We're using them there as a like preparation for performance. We're also gonna use them as a way to kind of just keep things kind of balanced. So let's just have you go 1 more minute there. Okay. And then we'll get going with opening up things with our world's greatest stretch again.
It's funny that you talked about the hydration. If Mac directors are good, and usually they all are, is they leave a case of water by the. So there's 18 stages. There's a case of water, and unfortunately, at the end of both days, those cases of water were pretty full.
Yeah. Right.
And I know these guys. Some of them I see the water jugs on the side of their pack because. So it was essentially what they call ROing, and I was just there kind of observing one stage, kind of helping with the flow, and these guys are taxed.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think because of the colder weather, I'm guilty of this, not drinking enough water.
Sure.
Thinking that I don't need it. Right. Obviously, when it's hotter,
Yeah.
I'm drinking as much water as I can.
Expenditure's higher probably with higher temperatures, right? So. Yeah, no, it matters even in our colder temperatures. And again, it might not even something that you really feel. I think a lot of times the amount of dehydration we get into is not something that we necessarily feel.
Yeah.
We feel it when we get to that extreme point of dehydration, but actually you probably are feeling it in just some of the stiffness and the soreness, and you might notice less of that with appropriate hydration. So, and some of it's just the workload that we put our bodies through, right? So soreness isn't bad, stiffness isn't bad, but again, let's balance the scales and get things rolling again. So we'll lunge out there, get that down arm set, and then get the back leg set. Remember, we want the glute and the quad turned on, so hip and knee are straight. And they're gonna add rotation to the opposite side. Good. Let's do 5 rotations, and then you'll come back out of it, coming out of the lunge into standing position. Good. Nope. Let's go other leg. There you go. Same thing, get organized first. Back leg engaged, glute and knee, hip and knee, rotation 5 times. And I'll just reiterate what we talked about before when we went through this pattern, is that this gives us an opportunity to create some mobility, but also some activation. Yeah, we'll back up and let's just do it 1 more time each side. Because again, with the back leg being engaged, we're gonna help open up the front of that hip. We're gonna get some glute activation, which is important. With all the hiking and carrying the pack, the nature of that is a lot of times the posterior chain will kind of get eaten up a little bit. So low back and hips tend to get a little bit extra taxation there. as we go through that stuff. So this will be a way to loosen up that low back, as well as get some activation through those hips. And again, kind of leading us into some of the other mobilization stuff that we're going to get going on. Cool. Awesome. All right. Let's bring in our foam roller. So there's a few things we're going to do on this. The first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to have you lay on this so this is running up your spine, okay? Because I just want to kind of get things opened up here. So let's try to think it'd be the best way for them to see this. Let's maybe just do profile. So we'll go butt there, head there. Cool. So we're going to keep him in hook line, which is just a fancy way of saying I want feet down and knees bent. That's going to give him the stability he wants. Let's just go arms out to the side. And just let him ring. Just let him hang out. Just let him rest. Any tightness there?
Yes.
Cool. So the other thing, when you guys have a pack on, like you do in these competitions, right? You've probably noticed there's a little bit of a tendency to want to have it draw you forward a little bit too. When you're hiking, elevation, you're going to be leaning into that as well. We get done with the weekend and then we sit in a car in flexion.
Yeah.
So I just want to open up into some extension here. We're going to open up the anterior shoulder girdle here a little bit and just kind of let things chill out. I like the foam roll here because it gives us an opportunity to kind of get into a neutral spine position. Most of us are aware that the spine kind of alternates in its curvatures, right? So if it would make sense to you, we could go cervical spine, right, would be concave, thoracic spine would be convex, lumbar spine concave, and sacrum, again, convex there. So we've got those alternating curvatures of the spine, but we want to get to where have these contact points that gets you neutral. Yep. So we've got a contact point down here in the sacrum, kind of that tailbone.
Yep.
We've got contact point in the upper back, and then kind of at the base of the skull.
Yep.
So we're letting those arches exist, but we're not adding extra to them. And then from this position, it gives us a chance to kind of open things up and then kind of hit the reset button on a couple things. So we're gonna start with just kind of a basic reset on the neck positioning. So when we're shooting, we talked about it in the prone position, right? Already about kind of that turtleneck where we're poking the head out a little bit too much. You had mentioned about the elevation, shooting uphill, shooting downhill this last weekend, and the demands on the cervical spine for that. So this gives a chance for the neck to kind of be neutral, but now I want to work on kind of going the opposite direction of some of those repetitive forward kind of chin and head positions that you were getting in shooting. Yep. So what I'm going to have you do here, man, is I'm just going to have you do a gentle chin tuck. And so what you're going to do is you're just going to let your head gently rest on the foam, and you're just going to gently tuck your chin. I'm not thinking about pressing the head back here, but I just want you to just tuck your chin gently. Less.
And less.
Yeah, gentle. And then come out of it. Yeah, you'll gently tuck it, hold it for about 3 seconds, and then just come out of it. When you create that gentle chin tuck, do you feel it stretching anywhere?
Yes.
Where at?
The back of my neck, like high back neck.
Yeah, it's like right below the base of your skull?
Yes.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm just, again, gentle chin tuck, less is more here. So again, I'd have Phil go through like a series of these, whatever, maybe 10 of them, 3-second holds. Frank's the assistant, so he does some neuromuscular kind of re-education down there at the hand while this is happening here. He's going to make sure you washed your butt last night, all the good stuff. All right, so now what I want you to do, you're going to do that gentle chin tuck again, and then after you chin tuck, you're going to do a gentle head press into the foam roll.
Okay.
And then you're going to feel that stretch a little bit more intense, and you might feel the stretch kind of run down the back of the neck a little bit more.
That's right.
So gentle chin tuck, and then press into the foam gently. So this is a nice way to kind of get a little bit of mobilization, little active stretch on some of those tissues on the back of the neck. Because again, with a lot of the positions you guys are in when shooting, prone or uphill or any of them, a lot of times we're kind of extended and pushing things forward. So we're balancing the scales. We're just going the other direction with this. So this is just a nice way to just get that started and get some things loosened up in that. I think a lot of times people are surprised at how tight that feels when they kind of start tucking that chin. Yeah.
No, for sure. Again, it's muscles that I didn't even know.
Sure.
not existed, but
Yeah.
there was a way to work them out.
One thing I will add to, you know, on I think it was video 1, we had talked about doing some extension like Supermans and stuff. We could apply the same thing here. I didn't have you do that. I was just kind of letting your head do whatever it wanted to do, but you could apply this to the Supermans where you're lifting legs and upper extremities at the same time, where you do that gentle little drawback of the chin and into some retraction to help create that as well. So, okay, just let that relax now. So now that things are kind of not as tight now, hanging out there with the arms, we're just going to add a band.
Okay.
And we're going to get you doing some band pull-aparts.
Okay.
Again, everything was forward.
Yep.
Holding things in front of us. We're getting a lot of a flexion. I just want to open that up and make sure that chest opens and we get some activation in the upper middle back. So I'm going to give you that. As much tension, you're probably going to want a little bit more tension than that. I mean, like you're going to want to choke up because it's going to be too easy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you do a band pull apart. Okay. You're just going to pull that apart and you're going to go stay at about collarbone height. And you go all the way until the band touches chest, and you can keep going even further if you want. And then letting it back controlled. And then what I would cue Phil on here is to make sure that he continues to feel the foam roller with his shoulder blades, even when he comes out of it. So come back to the top for me, to your starting position. Keep coming. So even in this top position, I want shoulder blades down and back into that foam roll.
Okay.
But we're creating that from this part of the back, not your low back. So no extra arch in your low back.
Okay.
And you're just going to maintain good activation. Again, shoulder blades against the foam roll as you go through this motion. Let's have you do about 12 of them. And you can speed them up a little bit. I just want you to be in control of it. And again, I would cue him to make sure he's not getting extra arch here in his low back as a compensation to try to open more, right? Because you just want to open in the segment that we want. So no extra arch in the low back. There's plenty of that happening over the weekend. I'll take that. So again, this could be a way we could start. So we got him laying on a vertical foam roller.
Yep.
I want head supported. I want sacrum or ass supported here as well. Yeah.
Yep.
And then we open arms out to the side just to start. That was kind of our starting position to open that up. Yep. We did some gentle chin tucks. On that chin tuck, one more cue I'll give you. When you go to tuck this chin, when I asked him to do the first one nice and gentle, he like pinned it. And then he got tons and tons of activation here on the front of the neck. These SCMs were just, and I don't want that. I want it to be very gentle. So what you can think about when you're doing the chin tuck, as you tuck the chin, it should feel like your head kind of slides up the foam roller a little bit.
Okay.
So even less. You're trying too hard for that. Nope, still too much.
Too much.
Like less. I'm talking about just a gentle little chin tuck. That's it. And you'll feel just a smallest little bit of slide on that foam roll. Okay. And then after we got good at that, then we added a little bit of head press on it, which increased that stretch a little bit. So again, just kind of getting some lengthening to these tissues that have been short on the back of the neck from some of those repetitive postures. So, and then we added the band for the pull apart to open up anterior shoulder girdle even more and get some activation on the upper middle back as we went through that. So that would be a good place to start. Now we're going to keep using the foam roller. Okay. What I'm going to have you do, man, I'm going to have you sit right in front of it, facing this way, and we'll get you in position here. So suck your butt right up against it. Yeah, and keep a hold of the outsides like that. Now I'm going to have you lay back over the top of it and get so you're up on this like this. Yep, good. Bend hips and knees. Bend your knees. Cross your feet. Just let them hang out. Slide up a little bit more. What I'm looking for is to get Phil positioned to where the foam roller is right on like the top of his ass, like right where ass and low back meet. I don't want this on his low back. So go up even more. Right about there. Cool. Keep a hold of the foam roller on the sides there. That'll just help keep him positioned and keep the foam roll from squirting out from him. You're just going to let the legs kind of relax in this position. And then what I'm going to have him do is I'm going to have him just roll side to side. And what we're hunting for, found him already. We're hunting for the tissues out here on this lateral seam. So if I put a thumb in it there, yeah, those are tight. Those are banded up. So I want to work that lateral glute and loosen that guy up. A lot of the stuff that we may feel in the low back can very much be affected by what's happening through the hip. So this is going to be like a buy one, get one. As I have him roll back and forth on this, what's happening here on this side when he's in this position is what we call like a gapping position. So we're creating a little bit of space between those lumbar segments, and it gives an opportunity for, again, maybe the nerves to breathe a little bit, get some blood supply. Again, talking about that pump in, on and off of that, of getting fluid exchange. So we get that happening while he's on this side. He gets to mobilize the glute and the outside of the hip that's on the downside. So go back and forth here. And what you're doing here, we're just gonna go back and forth. Again, doesn't have to be fast, doesn't have to be a sustained hold, but we're just getting some repetitive motion. And when you get there, I want you to let it kind of relax and give in. You might even get some cavitations here. You might even get the low back to pop a little bit. Okay. That's not the goal. If it happens, whatever. But it's just a nice way to go back and forth. And you're letting the weight of your legs kind of help carry you there to open up those tissues. So when he's on this side down, we're gonna be working on the muscles that are tight and kind of hunting for where it's tight while we're getting a stretch and an opening here. Keep legs up more. Good. Now, as he goes back and forth, I want him feeling for what might be tight. Yeah. Finding those spots, because now what we're gonna do is now we're gonna work on them. So let's come back to your left. Find a good spot on that hip or that glute that feels familiar.
Right there.
Got one? And then I just want him to work on it kind of side to side, back to back. He's just using that foam roll to do kind of a self-massage, soft tissue mobilization. Loosening these tissues when they're tight and stoved up from a weekend like he's had, I think in my opinion, there's more value in him mobilizing these tissues like this than there is of just doing a bunch of static stretching. Again, if there's a static stretch that you like and you feel like it does a good job for you, use it. There's nothing wrong with that. And I might do one or two with him, but I think we get more value from the soft tissue mobilization than we do just a static stretch. Foam roller is a wonderful tool for making that happen. It's just a matter of kind of knowing kind of what positions to get into. So again, the objective here is to get on the tissues that are on this portion of his upper and outer glute, and we're not resting on that low back. We're mobilizing the tissues that are just below that low back to try to loosen up the tightness that you are feeling in the lumbar area.
Oh, God. Trying to maintain my coach pose. She's like,
It's okay, dude.
I shouldn't.
Listen.
I'm like thinking, am I really this tight?
Dude, we're gonna go deep inside the pain cave together. You know what I mean? And you're gonna find some spots that suck. So just breathe into it. We're intentionally finding where it's tight, where it hurts, and then we're mobilizing that. And then as you go, you'll be like, okay, the first time I did it made me like piss all over myself, but this time I just dribbled a little bit of pee. Yeah. So it's it's graded exposure. It's gonna loosen up as you keep going.
And it is exponentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right, man. So let's go at your quads now. Okay. So we'll get you off there. For visual for the camera, let's work you this way.
Okay.
So I'll start with him kind of just in this, imagine that, a prone position, yeah?
Yeah.
So in this prone position, now he's just gonna use his forearms to help him travel. And he's gonna roll the body up, working foam roller down towards the knee. And he's just kind of hunting for spots that might feel tight on those quads. And again, right now we're taking an assessment of what areas feel tight, how the quads are feeling, and we're just gonna keep going back and forth. So we're gonna work on them in a second, Phil, so just keep taking laps kind of back and forth from I want you to start at the front of the hips, working all the way down to the knee, and then all the way kind of back up. Because you gotta remember that the quads run that whole distance, right? They originate at the hip, and then they go down past the knee. So we're just kind of, again, getting some pads on here, getting some blood moving in them while we make an assessment of what areas maybe feel the most tight. After we've done a few laps like that, it could be for reps, it could be for minutes, but there's no rules here, right? Just spend some quality time here. And then I'm gonna have him kind of now pin in and find a spot that really sucks. So you let me know when you're there.
Right here.
Right there, cool. So he's gonna kind of roll side to side on it, back and forth. Again, you're just kind of doing like you would if you had found a soft tissue restriction on yourself, a spot that was kind of banded up, you'd work side to side on it, back and forth, you'd pin it down. We're just doing the same thing, we're just using the foam roller to help us with that. Now that you're on that spot, another thing he can do is I'm gonna have you stay on that spot, Phil, and go ahead and bend your knees all the way up, and then straighten them again. So now we can kind of do like a pin and stretch. We can lengthen and shorten that tissue while we've got it tacked down. And this is a nice way to help loosen those up as well. The other thing I could have him do is just do flutter kicks like you're swimming. Shorter ones. Well, you swim weird, bro.
Yeah, I'm not a swimmer.
Shorter strokes. Yeah. So just some back and forth there again. We're just doing a kind of a pin and stretch, tacking those tissues down. And you can hear the laborious breathing, which means that we're finding some good spots, which is awesome. That's why we're doing this. All right, so now we're gonna go. Go really deep inside the pain cave here, and I'm gonna have you. Which, by the way, I'm stealing that quote from Kelly Starrett. He's the man, dude. He's a PT and the Supple Leopard, great dude. But the pain cave, it's an important place to go with willingness, right? So now I'm gonna have you kind of prop up on your right hip onto the foam roller here.
Okay.
So in this position here, can you get your body in line with your leg for me? Yep, and then drop to that forearm again. So I'm trying to get him to forward roll a little bit here, which is why I'm having him drop that forearm.
Oh God.
And then I'm gonna have you do the same thing. You're gonna roll up towards me, foam roller down towards the knee. So you're still at a big L.
Yep.
I want you to be like in line.
Okay.
So like if I was mirroring you.
Yep. Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yep.
So I want just get in that straight line for me. Good. Cool. All right, man. So now you're gonna work down. So right here though, you see how Phil's opening his hips? So he's putting pecker to the sky.
Yeah.
I want pecker to the turf.
Okay.
Keep that forward roll. And the reason for that is now that's gonna get him more on the front lateral seam of that leg. And then he will, the other way's fine too. You're gonna get kind of IT band and some hamstring, which may need it. But right now I'm trying to get him to work this seam here. Some of y'all after a weekend competition like that and lots of hiking might be getting some like anterior knee like pain or tightness. And this would be a go-to to help loosen some of that up. Find some spots?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Keep working all the way down towards that knee. Right about there sucks a lot.
Right there.
And so the spot that he's getting on there, if you can consider the quad muscle from kind of where it inserts or originates to where it inserts, there's kind of like an arc a little bit. So if you can imagine like a bridge, right? The keystone of a bridge, we're probably going to feel the most tension. And that's what he's noticing when he starts working towards that. So as he works up, right about there, starts getting real spicy.
Yeah.
And those are the spots that we want to work out. Because again, there's a theme that we use in the therapy world that's called regional interdependence, which says your symptoms may be here, but we're going to mobilize and work the tissues upstream and downstream of that in an effort to add some relief to your area of discomfort or pain. So, all right, man, let's switch sides. So let's keep you facing the camera so they can see your pain face. While Phil's working on that, I'll give you guys just something else to think about is that right now we've got him working the lateral side, right? When we talk about some of our knee stuff, knee pathologies and like a patellofemoral syndrome, essentially what that is we're just the kneecap is not tracking on a neutral line. And so we want to try to improve that. And so typically what'll happen is we'll have tightness on the lateral side and a little bit of weakness or lacking activation on the medial side. So this is going to help us loosen up here. And then with some training and some activation patterns, we could work on getting some good activation through the quads and create a more balanced position, helping that kneecap to track a little bit more on a neutral path. All right, so go ahead and sit in front of the foam roller facing the step mill here. So now we're gonna go at thoracic spine. So kind of going back to stuff we talked about kind of day one, we're gonna give those legs and hips a break since they're woken up for sure. Yeah. Again, with the pack on, a heavy pack, we're gonna get probably a little extra kyphotic position here at times. And then especially just driving, right? Like how long was your drive?
6 hours on the way back.
Yeah, that's a lot of windshield time. Yeah. So again, we just want to open these guys up into extension. Okay. We spent a lot of time talking about that, the thoracic spine is very important to me to create appropriate movement for extension and rotation. So we're going to go the mobilization we did here on this guy. So go ahead and lay back over that. Again, I'm just kind of starting that, come up a little bit, right about there. So this is where we had him support his head. Knees are bent, feet are down, and then I'm having him extend over this and then closing it back off. I'm gonna have him do 3 of those. And then he's gonna move the foam roller up 1 vertebrae or himself down and do it again. And we're just gonna work our way up. And they're really small movements. The vertebrae, right, they aren't very big. The foam roller is a big broad surface. So we're mobilizing more than just one. But the idea of that, I wanna do 1 segment at a time.
I've been incorporating this ever since we did our first one into my kind of warm-ups.
Yeah.
And it's been great. You know, especially after just seeing the difference, because even people in the audience that were watching the first YouTube video saw just a huge difference in my range of motion.
Sure.
You know,
when you settle back into the prone.
when I settled back into the prone.
Life, I mean, you know, we're talking about a lot of the sport-specific things for shooting and positioning there, but just like this is needed for just the general balance of life. We sit so much. There's been arguments that say sitting is the new smoking. I know that might be a little extreme, but nevertheless, sitting just kind of kills our athletic performance. And so we want to make sure that, again, thoracic spine is doing what it needs to do. And Phil, I would continue to cue him. He tends to want to get a lot of it from here and lower. Yeah, so let this relax.
Okay.
So come back out of it. Let this drop. Keep that there as you extend over it.
Okay.
See, now you're playing,
Yeah.
So you just have to watch yourself because it's very easy to cheat some of this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that's not moving. Then like low back's always ready to party, right? So he's like, I got you, bro.
Yeah.
So then extra extension there. So just try to remember, like, what are we mobilizing and why?
Okay.
Just like when I have anyone get into an exercise, I want the conversation of why am I doing this exercise? Well, I'm doing lat pull downs or I'm doing rows. Okay, you're doing a row, but like, what are you doing the row for? Are you doing it for lat? Trying to bias lat? Are you trying to bias rhomboid middle trap? Like, why are you doing it? Not just, well, I'm doing rows. Let's add some specificity to this, and even with our mobilizations, these are the segments that I want to move, right?
What would you cue to keep that lower back from not wanting to, you know, because I guess as I'm coming up, I feel like I want to.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is we're just not adding an extra arch.
Okay.
So if you can think I'm dropping belly button towards the floor.
Yeah, like that. Okay.
Or, you know, flattening out the arch in your low back a little bit.
Yeah.
So that we can make sure to get there. Now, because of that, he's not going to move as much. Fine. But now it's maybe a little bit more of a pure mobilization towards his thoracic spine.
That
cool.
helps. Belly button to the ground.
Yep. Okay, cool. So again, that's another one that we could add in for that foam roll.
Okay.
Again, making sure that we're opening up that upper back to balance the scales of everything that you went through this weekend.
Yeah.
So several things there on the foam roller to kind of get us started.
Yeah.
We got blood moving on the Echo bike, right? We went through your world's greatest stretch. Then we got to opening things up a little bit, getting some neutral positions on the foam roller. Then we went at the quads, right?
Yeah.
The outer seam, we went at the hips to loosen up that low back too. And one thing that I'll add here too, lay on your back with head here. So I'm going to put him in hook line position. If for any of you guys out there, they're like, man, like my low back like sucks. Before you even did the one that I had him do side to side on the foam roller, I would have you do that, but I would have you start on the ground first, just some general active range of motion. So bend knees, have feet on the ground. Let's go feet, knees together. And I'm just going to have Phil go side to side rotation. We call these windshield wipers or whatever you want to call them, but I'm having knees and feet together, which is going to, again, put us in some similar positions we talked about with the foam roll. It's going to help open up that lateral seam of the hip a little bit and that side of the low back, whichever opposite of the side that's down. And it just gets that repetitive motion happening. And it creates that pump, gets that fluid exchange happening. So this is a money maker for any stiffness you might have in the low back. And then after he did it for reps, maybe he did it for minutes, who knows, doesn't matter to me. Next, I would have him do the variation is where I'd have him go feet and knees apart now. Feet and knees apart, feet and knees apart, good. Now as he does it, now we're gonna play more on the hips. So now go ahead and drop to your right. So now right hip is externally rotated, left hip is internally rotated. This one, he won't feel much of a stretch on, but the internal one, the left, is where he'll probably feel more of a stretch and more of a demand, and then back the other way. So now again, we can play on the hips a little bit and teasing out some of those motions as we go through that. And I know you've been working on your internal rotation a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, but this is one to, again, back and forth, repetitive motion, create that pump, but loosen up some of those areas more specifically around the hips. So this is where you could start if you're super stoved up prior to doing it on the foam roller the way I had Phil doing it for the soft tissue mobilization on that. I want to show you another variation for the neck over at the wall here.
Okay.
So if you guys have I'm just using like a kickball here, but if you have like a soft like rubber ball, this is a nice little drill that we can do for some of that head and neck positioning.
Okay.
So just like I had you do on the foam roll, I'm going to have you gently tuck your chin. And now as you do that, I don't want you looking down. Okay. So you kind of went into flexion.
Yeah, okay.
I just want a gentle chin tuck.
Okay.
So again, it's very subtle.
Okay.
But you can think about just kind of moving here at the base of the skull.
Yeah.
Now I've got that gentle chin tuck. Now I'm going to have you kind of press into the ball there a little bit. And you'll just come out of it. Nothing about this is a really big motion. And for you guys, in the camera, you won't even probably be able to see much of it. But again, he has a tendency to want to go too hard here. Mm-hmm. So let's just try to think about. So what I can cue him on is when he goes to tuck that chin gently.
Yep.
And it's not dumping head down into flexion.
Yep.
It's just a gentle chin, like kind of rolling chin underneath. That's better. And he'll feel the ball roll a little bit. So the ball will kind of pick up on the wall there as he goes through that. Do you feel a similar stretch at the base of that?
I do.
Base of that skull?
Especially with that subtle, not just doing, but just that subtle.
Yeah. And so that can be something that Phil can look for of like, hey, am I when I'm on the foam roller, if I'm here, am I getting the opening of those tissues that I want up high, right under my skull? Because if he's not, he know that he's just dumping into flexion too much. And these muscles on the front of the neck, man, they work overtime for all of us. So again, we're trying to like keep those guys like relatively pretty quiet. Like, again, I don't want to get too into the weeds on this. Like we go really deep into like some craniocervical flexion and stuff like that. But right now, I know that this is going to be a spot that's going to feel really tight for a lot of people. And that's a pain point for a lot of people that are shooting the prone, right? And some of that as well. So it's just a nice little drill to kind of try to facilitate that a little bit. So the next thing I could have you do, so I'm going to steal that. You could just have a seat here. All right, man. So we're going to put this band over your head here. All right, so now what he's going to do is he's just going to do some gentle head presses into this here. As he does this, the other cue that I could have given him with the ball, and I'll give him right now, is that if he had a laser pointer on his head pointing at the wall across from you, I want that laser, or that red dot, rather. Let's keep that red dot right in the same plane.
In the same plane.
I don't want that to change as you go through this motion.
Okay.
So he's gonna do a gentle chin tuck and head press. So less is more, man. That was huge.
Yeah.
It was huge. Less. I want a slow transition. That was better. Because then he's gonna have an opportunity to assess in real time of, am I moving from where I want? If he just goes too hard and fast, he's gonna blow past it, and we have no idea what the hell just happened. So
right there.
slow and steady, So keep that red dot where you want it. And then you should be feeling a similar taxation there. But now we're adding a little bit of resistance. And in some ways, as we add resistance now, it's going to be easier to find because the resistance gives us feedback. So right now, I like much better of what the front of his neck looks like. And it's not getting overly like slamming into the SCMs. And again, it's just a small little motion. It's not big. It doesn't need to be. This is just a little bit of a kind of a neuromuscular re-education of like, where do we move from, and can we get things in a more neutral position, and again balance the scales from some of the positions we're going to have to be in when we're shooting. So at some point, like, we're not going to change the postures that we repetitively have to be in. We want to make them as ergonomical as possible, but they are what they are sometimes, and then that's where the importance of balancing the scales comes in.
And cool. I'm curious, I always, and I don't know if this is an excuse because I've never had any neck issues, but you always hear a lot of shooters, they kind of just like, they deal with it, right? And they just say like, oh, I'm never gonna get to that point, right? I'm never gonna get to a point where I'm comfortable in the prone because my neck is just not made that way, right? Is that the case? Is that a scapegoat answer to just be like, I've already tried many things to get comfortable, because I hear it a lot. Like,
sure. I mean, I guess that there's multiple angles to come at that for that answer. One of them, the first thing is like, I'll be the first to admit and recognize that this shit is tedious. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. This shit's tedious. I mean, we've been at this for how long? We've been at this for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, so it's
and
like,
we're probably barely even scratching the surface.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so obviously it's taking longer because the instruction piece. So if you were to run through kind of this whole series, I mean, you could chop it down to like 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And maybe, and I'm not saying it's something that has to be done daily, but if we can get to a spot to where we have it as part of our maintenance, where like, hey, twice a week, I go through these routines to get like, cervical and thoracic positioning where I want it. Yeah, it's tedious and it's not going to be overnight. So sometimes we're like, well, I didn't feel any different when I shot the next day. Well, of course not. Like you didn't get to where you're at overnight and you're not going to change it overnight. So, we always talk about the difference between motivation and discipline. Motivation is bullshit. Discipline is doing the shit you don't want to do.
That's right.
Right? Yeah. Like you want to do it. And so this will fall in that category. It's tedious. It's annoying. Like, I don't have time for this. Well, maybe you don't not have time for it, depending on how important shooting is to you and improving those positions.
That's the same thing like the 100-yard drills, right? For long range shooting, a lot of guys skimp over the 100-yard drills and start immediately shooting at distance. Because like, I need to get better at calling wind. Well, you try to call wind at a 2 MOA target, but you can't even hold a 1 MOA group. Or you can't even hold a 2 MOA group by yourself without the influence of wind. Yet they don't want to do the work at paper. And one of the things that I've always talked about in terms of like increasing your proficiency of the rifleman is always looking for ways to like increase your, anything that you do that relates to connecting to a rifle by 1%, right? Because
certainly,
the aggregate of marginal gains, right, wins. So,
and I think if you look at any elite athlete in any sport at the very top level, right, any professional athlete, why do we never stop doing like passing and like layup drills in basketball? Why do we never stop running routes in football? In soccer, why do we never stop doing like single touches? Like, because I'm like, it's without those basic mechanics and keeping those relevant, then we can't tie all that into the bigger picture. So some of the stuff like this from the preventative side or the rehabilitative side, it's also going to play into the activation. And then when you go for some of those positions, some of those things, hopefully it shows up there. That's the hope, is that what we do here in the gym has a functional application and is a piece of that puzzle of showing up the way that you want to show up. And it will not happen overnight. And you got to play the long game. Everyone wants to shoot the long target. Well, then shoot the long target. That's what you're doing here. Play the long game and know that the stuff you're doing now with your fitness, the long game that's going to help you hit those longer targets. So keeping that in perspective, I think, is important. And on a day like we did today, if we had more time, what I would do with you next, I would load you more. We've got some good activation patterns. We mobilize some tissues. I would get you rowing. I would do some extensions bias rows. I might even get you doing like some moderate load deadlifts. Again, nothing to the point of exercise today that would be for like breaking down tissue to make it grow back stronger, but just to get activation. So again, enough load to give feedback, but get you rowing so you can get some extension. Extension bias movement would be huge for me. And then while doing those, paying attention to head position, that as I finish a row, I don't jet forward into that turtleneck, and that I maintain some of these postures that I was paying attention to with the things we started with.
That's right.
So you don't need to be a prisoner to your movements, till you're like you're a robot and I'm afraid to move. Like, you need to let your body move, but just having some awareness of why you're doing the things you're doing and some of the positions we want to try to keep. Where do we want to feel it? All of that stuff matters a lot to me.
Cool. Well, Dale, I appreciate it. This was a quick video, again, down and dirty of, really going over active recovery for, a pretty tough 2-day. And I would say you see a lot of these style of matches out west. I wouldn't say typically out east, the ranges out east, movements are a little closer together. They're not making, there's not much elevation gain, but, with this previous event, very similar to, what hunters are going to, it was a hunter match per se, is what the series is called, NRL Hunter. So, we talked about recovery and activation. I think those were, really the biggest key words that I took from today's session. So I appreciate your time, Luke.
Absolutely, man. Pleasure as always. And again, just plug these guys. And this is just a starting point.
For sure.
We've grabbed 5-6 things, but out of a list of 25 potentials. So in you guys' own research, if you find something that you feel like is on the same theme and you like it better, by all means, do it. This is not the end all be all. We're just trying to get you guys started, get you thinking, getting the juices flowing of like what can I be doing to maximize. So,
and if you guys have any more questions about this stuff, I'm gonna again link all of Luke's social media, his YouTube, all down below. so that you can reach out to him if you want to, if he's got bandwidth for it. And as well as check out his most recent blog that we did of him shooting, with me the other week. So that's on his YouTube as well by the time this video releases. So see how well he does behind a precision rifle. But you did a damn good job for the first time that you were on it. I know we talked about me share wind calls, but that's just the start. Just
Sure.
getting that hook in. So
Sure.
Appreciate your time again, Luke.
Yeah.
You guys, if you guys have any questions, let us know down in the comments of what you want to see. If you guys continue to like to see this content, and I'm already looking forward to the next one. Thanks, guys, and you have control.